Insight is a deeper appreciation of something or someone. And let me say, when this person said yes to insight, I was extremely happy. I was extremely pumped. I had the opportunity to do a lot of live Instagrams during the course of my tenure on being on social media, and this person and I have one of the best conversations as it relates to English and perspectives on education. So, without further ado, sir, let them know your name and where are you from?
Hello, my name is Christian, although you might know me as Canguro, and I am from Perth in Australia.
Now, teacher Christian, I have lots of questions, so I only got a couple personal questions because I want to get into the education, your thoughts on education. But here's a question for you. If I gave you $1 million and you could travel and live anywhere in the world, what place or places would that be and why?
I know that this answer is probably a bit of a cliche. It sounds a bit cheesy, but the truth is, if I had all the money in the world, I would still choose to live right here in this place, in my house, because I really feel at home and really happy here.
What is the biggest misconception about you, teacher Christian?
Ironically, I think the biggest misconception about me is that I still live in Australia. So, like, I get emails and messages from people who say, hey, I'm going to be in Perth. Can I come and visit you? Or, I'm going to be in Sydney next year. Do you do courses? And I reply, well, no, because I live on the other side of the planet.
All right, so teacher Christian, can you briefly explain to everyone why you became a teacher?
I became a teacher by accident. Like all good things in life, it was an accident. I was living in a caravan and here in Spain, and a neighbor needed to pass an English exam. And so he came knocking on my caravan and said, hey, you're a native English speaker. Help me to prepare for this exam. So I literally went out and I bought a grammar book and I started on page 1 and we just started doing that. And at that time, I knew nothing about English grammar, about how to learn a language, nothing at all about this world. Definitely nothing about teaching. And my passion slowly grew over time. It definitely wasn't like, wow, this is it. No, it happened with time.
What is it that you love about teaching?
Again, it probably sounds like a terrible cliche. But it's true. It's absolutely true. The thing that I love most about teaching is the students. Because I think there are very few jobs where you have that kind of contact with people, you know, because it's not really about the language. Well, in my classes it isn't. Okay, it's not about the language. It's about just expressing your thoughts and ideas. So sometimes my job is more bordering on kind of, you know, therapy, counseling, because, or even just bordering on maybe debate and collaboration, because, you know, students come to class and, you know, we talk about things they're worried about or things they're passionate about, and we talk about their ideas, and we just happen to do all of those things in English.
Let's say, for example, that you have students that are demotivated, they've lost inspiration. what tips or suggestions would you encourage them to motivate themselves?
Motivation is a tough one because, the truth is that it's really, really hard to learn a language and it takes a really, really long time. So to be successful, you need motivation, not just, for that specific date until you pass that exam. You need motivation basically forever because, language is something you have to maintain. It's a skill like running or flying an aeroplane. You have to maintain the skill. So motivation doesn't come from the things that you expect. Like, I know that there's lots of kind of tricks, motivation kind of techniques, the 1, 2, 3 method or the ABC method or the method named after some guy who invented it. But, the kind of motivation you need to learn a language will come from actually using the language to do things. Because nobody has the passion or the energy or the commitment to study a language for 30 years. You're not going to sit down with grammar every day or lists of vocabulary. No. You're going to find motivation to continue to improve by putting yourself in situations where you use English, like starting a blog, making a YouTube video, making some friends online, joining a book club, whatever it is that you're interested in. That's where the motivation that you need to succeed will come from.
Teacher Christian, I'm your student. I'm shy. I'm afraid to speak English. How can I overcome my shyness?
The thing about fear is that everybody is afraid of something, right? People are afraid of public speaking, afraid of using their English, afraid of snakes, afraid of failing at work, afraid of their mother-in-law. Everybody's afraid of something, and the cure to these fears is all the same. And really, it's this kind of question is not really a question that can be answered by the world of language teaching, right? To answer the question of how can we overcome fear, we have to look to the world of clinical psychology, because they are the people who specialize in treating people who have fear. And all of the research is unanimous. We know how to overcome fear. We know it works. People who treat clinical patients, they know it works. Okay, and the way to overcome your fear is to face your fear. And if you're waiting for a magic solution, there isn't one. And we know there isn't because very intelligent people who work with patients who have fear of maybe like social phobias or other types of phobias, they want a solution for their patients, a quick and easy solution for fear, but there isn't one. What works is facing it. So if you're afraid of speaking, you have to speak more. If you're afraid of even just writing, you have to write more. And there's no magic cure, and waiting for one, expecting a miracle to happen will only lead you to failure. So the solution is to face your fears now.
What are your 2 favorite idioms and 2 favorite slang words if you have them?
Okay, I've only chosen one of each because there are so many idioms and slang words in English that I love that I'm just going to choose one. So my favorite idiom is probably to kill two birds with one stone. And the reason I love it is because it's it's something that I never do. I'm very inefficient and ineffective, so I never actually kill two birds with one stone. It's more like I can barely wound one bird with 500 stones. That's how I feel. And the other reason I love this idiom is because it's exactly the same in Spanish. Matar dos pájaros con un tiro. Well, they don't say with one stone, they say with one shot, but it's the same. So I love that kind of symmetry, that the concept exists in both languages. And my favorite my favorite slang word is actually an Italian word, and it's ciao. Now, not just here in Spain, but in lots of countries in Europe, and in fact even in English-speaking countries, like the United States or even in Australia, people say ciao instead of see you later or goodbye or whatever. They say ciao, and it's interesting how this word has kind of come out of Italian and spread all over the entire world as a kind of cool alternative way to say goodbye. But I think the reason I love the word is because of its history. Because basically, in the past, the Italians, the medieval Italians, they were very formal people, very polite and formal people. And so it was a tradition. Back then, it was a tradition to introduce yourself with your name and your occupation. So I would say, for example, hello, Christian English teacher, or hello, Frank engineer. And so there were, of course, because medieval times, there were lots of people who were slaves. So they would say Christian, schiavo. And schiavo is the Italian word for slave. And there were so many slaves that over time this word got repeated so much, schiavo, 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 that over time it became the word ciao. So every time somebody says ciao, basically you're saying, hey, I'm a slave.
Oftentimes in the ESL community, there's a huge debate going on. In your opinion, what is the difference between fluency, accent, and in your opinion, which is more important?
Fluency is a tricky word because it means different things to different people. I don't think that there will ever be a universal definition of fluency because fluency is an abstract concept. And you can't say it's just the words coming out quickly, because I know plenty of students who can produce words really quickly and they don't make a lot of sense, or their pronunciation is so bad that I can't understand what they're saying. Are they fluent? Well, the words are coming out fluently, but I wouldn't say they're fluent. So, and some people call themselves fluent if they're able to just have basic conversations. And other people say that fluency is, the ability to do international business. So I think you need to decide for yourself what your learning goal is, what you consider fluent enough. And there's no value judgment here. Nobody can say to you, you're not fluent. Well, you can't say that because there's no definition, there's no agreed concept here. So like with everything in language, set a goal and stick to it. And when you get the goal, awesome. Now, as far as accent goes, there's so much focus in the English learning industry. There's so much focus on being like a native speaker, having a native accent, having native grammar, think in English, even think like a native. But really, these ideas are old-fashioned and outdated, and I would say, I would go so far as to say that they're harmful, right? They do harm, because it continues to promote this idea that to be like a native speaker is to have the language perfect. And that's just wrong in so many ways. One, because you don't need to be a native speaker to have great communication. And two, because I know plenty of native speakers who have terrible levels of English in some areas. Sure, of course they're fluent in everyday conversation, but that doesn't mean that they can write, academic writing. It doesn't mean that they know that they have a great vocabulary, advanced vocabulary. It might be very small. They might not know what a word means, or you know what it means, right? So the idea of wanting and needing to be like a native speaker and have a native accent is an idea that is old-fashioned and thankfully is slowly dying. So please eliminate it from your mind.
Could you please give your opinion on the impact that culture has in terms of the learning of English?
The effect of culture on language is huge. There's no separation of language and culture. They're basically the same thing. And it's the same for learning a language. Some cultures attack learning in different ways. You can have countries which have a very kind of progressive education system, right? Where it's maybe there's no curriculum, no exams, they're just, flowing through the learning process. Great, and there are other countries that are all about, memorizing, boom, 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 and intense exams and testing, and that's fine. Though they are cultural constructs. And also, different cultures value different types of learning. Like here in Spain, for example, going to university, getting a degree, getting a master's, getting a doctorate, they're highly valued things and almost considered essential. They're considered obligatory. But, there are other places where it's much more highly valued and maybe more useful to be a mechanic or a sculptor or, something like that. So, these are all cultural constructs. But regardless of whether you're from Japan or England or whatever, that does not change the reality of the language learning process. Okay, because a brain is a brain is a brain. Okay, they're not different depending on where you're born, and so we know what works when you're learning a language, and that is to actually use the language to do things. Okay, so when it comes to language, that kind of repetition stuff, has severe limitations. And again, on the other hand, a very free and open curriculum also has limitations. You know, it's somewhere in the middle. It's a combination of good foundation of the technical stuff, and then a gigantic mountain of practice. And there's no secrets here.
For those individuals that have aspirations to be teachers in the future, whether they want to be a teacher or whether they want to open up a school such as yourself, what suggestions or advice would you give them?
My advice for anybody who wants to become a teacher is very simple. Be passionate. Because passion drives everything else. If you're passionate, you go home and you read about the latest research in language acquisition. If you're passionate, you'll spend the time to plan a really good class for your kids. If you're passionate, you will help your students. Help the students. Focus on the students rather than sitting behind your desk and, okay, everybody, open to page 4, okay? Passion drives all of the good stuff. And so that's the only thing you need.
And in your opinion, you've been teaching now for almost a decade now. What trends do you anticipate or do you see in the next decade as it relates to English?
I'm a little bit pessimistic about the next 10 years in the field of language teaching, because my great fear is that the English language teaching world, the industry, is looking to technology to, number one, to make more money, and two, to solve what seem to be problems, such as how do we teach people to learn languages, right? And so, for example, you have machine learning algorithms, artificial intelligence, grading people's exams. You know, computers read your writing and say, this is an A writing or an F writing, or this should get 90 out of, you know. And this is so wrong in so many ways. The technology is nowhere near sufficiently advanced. The technology is not good enough to be doing this. And it's doing enormous damage to students everywhere, and even to teachers, because it removes the human component from the classroom. When you say, well, okay, everybody, let's do an exam. Here, open your screen, and the computer will ask you questions, and it will record your voice, and then it will spit out your score. That's not language. Okay, that's merely one very narrow way of testing someone on something. That's all it is. It's this, okay? Language is this, and this kind of testing is this tiny, so that you're not really testing people's language ability, you're testing how good they are at doing that one particular thing. And I'm going to do my best to show everybody what a terrible idea it is to remove humans from the one thing that is deeply human, and that's language.
Now, you are known for many different quotes. What does stop studying, start communicating mean to you? And why do you think that's important for the learners to understand?
Stop studying, start communicating. A lot of people think that it means that you don't have to study. A lot of people think that it's like a kind of trick, you know, like that's my trick, you know, that's my thing, my sales pitch, my motto. But what I'm saying is language isn't something to be studied. Okay? If you go into a bar to meet somebody, they don't care if you know everything there is to know about the past perfect continuous. They don't care. They do not care. If you go into a job interview and you say, hey, you know what? Man, I've been studying relative clauses. Let me tell you about non-defining relative clauses, because they are fascinating. Nobody cares, okay? The person doing your job interview doesn't care. The person at the bar doesn't care. The only thing that people care about is hearing you express your ideas and your thoughts. So that's what you need to work on, right? You need to work on what you're saying, not how you're saying it. And I mean, obviously it has limitations, right? I mean, it's a change in mindset. It's a change in mindset. I'm saying don't treat language as an academic subject. Treat it as a tool for communication. And so, you know, part of that is the boring stuff, the difficult stuff. Part. But unless you're using it, what's the point?
All right, Teacher Christian. I want to ask you this question. How would you describe Teacher Will?
Teacher Will is a Category 5 tornado of energy and passion. I admire his endless supply of just excitement and passion and energy, and I would be happy for him to teach me basically anything. Because, you know, someone like that in the classroom, that makes learning a joy, you know, a real joy. You know, there's been a lot of research done about, you know, what is the most kind of, what is the one thing in the classroom that has the biggest effect on people's learning. And, you know, it's safe to say that the teacher is number one, always. Because, you know, the teacher controls what the students learn. But more than that, the teacher is the one who shows the way, right? The teacher's job isn't to fill you the knowledge, you know, fill you with knowledge, to give you stuff, to kind of feed it into you, to force it into you. Their job is to say, hey, look at this. Look at it. Look at it. Isn't that interesting? Don't you want that inside you? And then they decide if they want it inside them or not.
What does the word insight mean to you?
Insight means exactly, you know, what the two components, you know, tell you. It's a vision inside some type of container. You know, I can have insight into your mind. I can see your thoughts. I see what you're thinking. I can have insight into a social issue. I have an insight into, you know, crime and punishment, or an insight into politics. And it's really interesting how the metaphor of seeing is a synonym for understanding, right? Seeing is understanding. So having insight basically means knowing.
All right, Teacher Christian, so listen. Thank you very much for participating in Insight. Any last words, suggestions to improve one's English or one's life? The floor is yours.
My one piece of advice to anybody who's trying to learn a language and for anybody who wants to have an awesome life, which I'm not qualified to give advice about, but this is not my advice. This is advice from the ancient Greeks, and probably from people that existed way before them. My advice is to get curious. You know, the moment you stop asking questions is the moment that you stop growing as a person. You know, the moment that you stop asking why, your development is finished. And it's the same with language, you know? It's like someone teaches you a new word, you're like, damn, that's an amazing word. I love that word. I'm curious about that word. I'm going to look up where it came from. How can I use it in other different ways? How do other people use it? Does it have negative connotations, positive connotations? Is it a slang word? Is it a swear word? Is it a cool word? So get curious. And I just want to say a massive thanks to Teacher Will for inviting me to make a video with him. Sir, you're a legend. Never lose that energy or that passion.